Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome back to the homestead. Today we're going to go over garden hoses. Now on a homestead, a hose is really important for watering a lot of different things, your livestock, your garden, your fruit trees, etc. So you need a good hose. Stick with us and see how to find the best hoses. So down here in front of me I have 5 different hoses. We're going to talk about all these different hoses, and then we're actually going to talk about a 6th hose that is not with me, that is really important, and you're going to want to stick around to hear me talk about that last hose. So hoses come in 3 different sizes: 1/2, 5/8, and 3/4. And they come in various lengths: 25 feet, 50 feet, 75 feet, and 100 feet. Those are your standard and normal sizes, diameters, and lengths. Now, as you can probably surmise, the water flow out of a 3/4 hose is going to be much better than that out of a 1/2-inch hose. I would recommend for all you homesteaders out there watching this video a 3/4-inch hose. You're going to get a lot better water flow for watering your garden, your livestock. Obviously, it's going to be a little bit faster as well. So when you're looking for a hose, there's several different types of construction types out there, and there is a direct correlation between price and quality of hose. Hoses can be constructed out of either a vinyl material or a rubber material. You want rubber, hands down. All of the commercial grade and professional type contractor hoses are what you're looking for, and those are made from rubber, and usually several different plies. Now, you can have a hose that's, say, 3 or 4 ply, but made out of terrible materials, and it's not going to work for you as well as the rubber hose is. A rubber hose, well-constructed rubber hose, is going to not kink on you at all. Although it's heavier, that's the only advantage to a vinyl hose and a smaller diameter hose, is the rubber hoses are much heavier to pull around. But I'm going to tell you right now, they're going to last you a lot longer, and you're going to save money in the end. For what you spend on the rubber hose, the wider gauge or diameter rubber hose, the more contractor-based hose, as opposed to your cheap Walmart vinyl hose, even though it might be reinforced or a few different plies, you're gonna save money down in the long run, hands down. All right, so let's look at these hoses in front of me. Let's start from, all right, bad to good here. So we've got a really cheap, probably I think it was $10, Vigoro. I think you can find these at Lowe's, Home Depot, Walmart, etc., etc. This is a 1/2-inch hose, although there's some nice features about this hose. This hose has a non-kink sleeve that when you connect it to your hose spigot, it's going to not kink right at the neck, and that's really helpful for keeping this fittings nice and unbroken at that point where it connects between the fitting and the hose. And it's nice that this this cheaper hose had this, so this isn't a bad hose. This hose has been sitting outside for, I believe, 4 years, and you can see, maybe it's a little less, maybe, yeah, 3 or 4 years, and you see it's highly corroded. It's got stuff growing on it, but it's actually held up decently well. I have been impressed with this hose. The second hose here, you can see that it has, I'm going to bring in both ends here, this has a brass fitting on it. Now, brass fittings, well, brass and plastic, we'll talk about that in a second, but brass fittings are what you want to look for in a good hose. Brass is going to last longer, it's thicker material, it's more crush resistant. If you run it over with a lawnmower, or your tractor, a car, whatever it may be, or even step on it. Some of the more, the cheaper hoses that are made with an alloy material are going to bend on you. And actually this one is bent up a little bit, so this one is a brass mixture, an alloy mixture. You see it's corroding here with the green color, which means the presence of copper, but it has bent a little bit. And on this side, even though this is a nice big twisting, let's get you close to the camera here, a nice big grip on this plastic twister here, or connection, that is not what you want. I can't count how many hoses I've broken with that plastic attachment, that plastic connector right there. So again, this is a 1/2 inch hose. It's been outside for only a couple years, and the sun is really damaging it bad. So that's another advantage of a rubber hose. So rubber is not going to decay as quickly as a vinyl hose in the sunlight. And I know all of us aren't rolling up our hoses every single night and covering them. They're left out in the sun. These two hoses right here are both a high-grade rubber hose. One's a Fiskars. This is a Fiskars. This is a Gilmore. I believe this hose was close to $70, and this Fiskars, I believe, was $50. Both these hoses have been outside for close to 10 years. No problems with them. Absolutely no problems. They're both held up incredibly well, especially this Gilmore. The reason this Gilmore is on this side is it is absolutely the best hose I have. The rubber is strong, not decayed. These brass fittings are thick, really thick. There's no damage to them at all, and I can't say enough about the quality of this hose. Highly recommend getting that hose. And for reference, I'm going to be putting the ones that I recommend here down in the description below, and also the link to our Amazon store, so you can check them out over there. Or you can go to our website, countrylivingexperience.com, and we have our tool store there, which is linked directly to Amazon as well, if you want to do it that route, while checking out our blog and seeing what else we got going on, reading a little bit more about our family on our blog at countrylivingexperience.com. Now, the reason I left this hose in the middle here is this hose is interesting. This hose has been outside for several years. It is a commercial grade rubber hose, although it's a Harbor Freight brand. Now, Harbor Freight, love them, hate them, don't know. I love some things, I hate some things. They make cheap stuff. It comes from China, we all know that. But some of their stuff is actually really great quality. Now, I'll tell you that the hose itself is rubber, and it's a great quality. It's been sitting outside, there's no degradation to it. It is a solid, great hose. It's a 5/8 inch hose, and as well as the Fiskars. Sorry, the Gilmore is a 3/4, the Fiskars 5/8. This Harbor Freight's a 5/8. Now, the only thing that died or got messed up with this Harbor Freight were the connections. You can see I've cut it off and I've put a new fitting on here. And if it wasn't for that, I would say hands down go to Harbor Freight and grab this hose right away. You still can, but the fittings are going to break on you pretty quickly. Although you can fix them and repair them fast with a hose clamp and an extra fitting you can buy at the store. I believe this is maybe even a Gilmore fitting. I'm not sure. But also you can tell that the fitting I bought, let's talk about connections now and fittings. We talked about the plastic ones and avoiding those. We talked about an alloy that's weak and can get crushed. We're going to talk about full brass. Look at that Gilmore one. It's thick, it's beautiful, there's not a thing wrong with it, and it's been out here for 10 years. This Fiskars is interesting. It is plastic. However, this collar that they put on here is really heavy duty. It's a really, really, really solid, thick plastic, and it's held up with no problem. So I might backtrack on it a little bit. If the fitting is as quality as this Fiskars, I'd say go for it, because it's held up incredibly well. Some of your replacement fittings like this one, and I'll bring this one closer to the camera also, you can tell there's been some corrosion. You can see on the inside there that it's corroded from the water and its connection to the brass fitting of the Gilmore hose. Now, that's unfortunate because I think this was marketed as being a brass fitting, and you can tell that it is not a good quality pure brass fitting, although it's thick and it's pretty solid. I can't crush this by stepping on it or running over it, but it is corroding, so that's unfortunate. Last hose I want to talk about is a brand that I was thinking about recommending at one point, and then I didn't bring it out, and I'll tell you why. And this is probably my fault, and it has to do with fittings. So this is a Never Kink brand, made by Tocor, I think it is. Tocor Never Kink. I got it at Northern Tool, but you can find them at Lowe's, Home Depot. The hose itself is pretty good. It's rated as a commercial, but it feels a little thinner. I think it's a 2-ply reinforced. I'm not 100%. I think the inner liner is rubber and the exterior is something else. It was a good quality hose. I paid $35 for it. However, it came with aluminum fittings. Now, if any of you know, and I didn't think about it, aluminum, when you attach it to a brass fitting on your house, your hose spigot or water hose bib, your water spigot, it will corrode. It's called galvanic action. I believe brass is a cathode and aluminum is an anode, and they came together, corroded, and I cannot get it off the water spigot on the outside of my house. So I do not recommend those because they have aluminum fittings. If you have a different type of hose spigot or hose bib, water spigot, whatever you want to call it, on your property, and you can connect aluminum to it, go for it. They're fine. It's a fine hose. But unfortunately, you can't connect it to brass. All right? So what I'd also recommend is buying shorter hoses. Now, if you have a stretch that is about 75 feet and you're stretching out to it with a 100-foot hose, that hose is pretty heavy and it's a pain to kind of wind back in. Also, if you want to move it, I'd recommend getting two 50-foot lengths, connecting them together, or a 25 and a 50, something of that nature, so you're not lugging around one big, heavy, expensive hose that is maybe a little bit more inconvenient, but it's up to you. I prefer to buy a little bit shorter length hoses. I buy 50s. I think I have 175 and a 25, but it will just make things a little bit more easy for you to get around your property with that hose. Also, let's talk about expandable hoses, because those are kind of hitting the market, and or they've been out on the market for a couple of years. You don't see one here. I'm not a huge expert on hoses, but I know what works really great out here and what lasts a long time. Those don't. They're almost all garbage. There's one out there I think I've heard that's good. It's called a Trutex. I don't own it. It's a Trutex expandable. It's a double wall vinyl with reinforcing. I've heard it's pretty decent. The only thing that's unfortunate about those expandables, as well as not being made of a good quality, is that the fittings on the ends, if they break off, are proprietary. So you can't just go like on this Harbor Freight one here and buy a replacement fitting and put it in, because the construction of the hose is different. Once a fitting breaks on one of those expandable hoses, it's done. Toss it in the garbage. And they can be a little bit more expensive because of the novelty of having that expandable hose. It's nice that it kind of coils back upon itself, but hey, if it's not good quality, that point is overridden, right? So if you have any questions about what we talked today about hoses, please put a comment in the comment section below and we will gladly answer your question for you. Also, we'd love for you to stick around. If you're new to the channel, hit that subscribe button and hit the notification bell next to it so you get notified every time we put out a new video, which is usually every Tuesday. Also, hit that like button and share it on social media. That helps us out a lot. Go in the description below to look for those hoses and the links that I talked about earlier in the video. And also, go check us out on countrylivingexperience.com. You can read our blog. You can read a little bit more about our family and what we're doing here. And we'd love to have you as part of that family. So subscribe, and we will see you on the next video. Have a great day.